Yeah!
Hey there. Thanks for clicking on this teaser for my show. My name's Josh Williams, and I'm the host of the One Man Podcast. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I live in the capital of Canada, which is Ottawa, Ontario. And at the time of this recording, I'm single, in my late 30s, and about a year into the pandemic. The One Man Podcast is, simply put, my public journal. I make it for my fans, friends, and family, but of course anyone's welcome to listen. And currently there's over 200 episodes, and I put out a new one every Wednesday. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and several others, as well as on the web at onemanpodcast.com. Please subscribe on your preferred platform, whatever that is, and if you could leave a review, it's a great way to help out the show, and it doesn't cost you a thing. On the podcast, you can expect to hear yours truly talk about what's going on with me personally and professionally, as well as talking about anything I deem fascinating, interesting, or frankly, whatever pops into my head at the time of the recording. I can't tell you how many weird rabbit holes we've gone down, but often they're pretty funny. The show is listed as a comedy, but that's a loose guideline. And the reason I mention this is because people see comedy podcast and assume it's an hour-long comedy special. That's not the case. A comedy special is stand-up material written and performed in front of an audience. The best comedians in the world release a new special once every couple of years. I release an hour of content every week. And I assure you I'm not 100 times funnier than the best in the world. It's a comedy podcast, which means that I take you through what's going on with me with a lighthearted and where applicable comedic take. So if I have an opportunity to make you laugh with the subject matter, I do. However, sometimes I'm talking about something serious or even sad. It's my life after all, and it's not always hilarious. I look at it through a comedy lens as much as I can, but I can't always be that way. In short, because it's every week of my life manifested in this public journal, the podcast will always be a reflection of the week that I've had. So if I've had a boring, uneventful week, like times in quarantine, there's a chance it's going to be a boring, uneventful podcast. So just keep that in mind wherever you decide to jump in. I always suggest starting with the most recent episode and working your way backwards. Another thing to make note of is that I sometimes have co-hosts. But it's the One Man Podcast. Yes, it is. You can always count on this one man being there, but sometimes someone has been a prominent part of my life in the current week's proceedings. So I'll invite them to join me in recounting the events or to offer their perspective on things in contrast to mine. It's a pleasant surprise to have a co-host, but not an expectation. Then sometimes I have people who are so interesting that they deserve their own episode. Now we enter bonus episode territory. I've had the chance to record with comedians, actors, celebrity chefs, etc. If I get a chance to record one of these, I release them on Fridays. These episodes aren't really pertaining to any particular week, so they're great to listen to whenever because they're typically timeless. They're even labeled differently in that instead of having an episode number, they'll have the person's name in the title. And that's the basics of what you can expect in my podcast. I let you know what's going on with me, if there's anything that's relevant, or even nonsensical things that are coursing through my head. I'm also not big on censorship, and I believe that everyone should have a voice. So if you have something that you want to send into the podcast, email contact@onemanpodcast.com, and I'll read it on an upcoming episode. You can send in feedback, a recommendation, an anecdote, a question. Hey, even if you disagree with me on a subject, fire it off, and I'll read whatever you send. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope you enjoy the One Man Podcast.